That's just the retreat part.
That's just the
retreat part. And then we can talk about the rest part, which was kind of strange.
Okay, and you can transition into the rest part too. But here's the question: so many of us get our identity from what we do,
right,
and the things that we accomplish and our impact on others.
Right.
So here you're using this metaphor. You leave the crowded room, you go to this empty room, and now all of the things, or many of those things that from which you could derive your identity and your sense of impact, are taken away.
Right.
How does that affect you?
Well, I feel like, I'm going to be completely honest in this. I feel like I'm cheating a little bit because I knew I could go back to it.
In 3 months?
Yeah, so a part of me, I knew I could go back to it, so it didn't feel lost.
Okay.
So that's helpful. It really is.
Yeah.
Lost, because you're going back to it. The harder part, I think the harder part for me was my expectation was if I don't have all these things to do, that I will automatically inside feel restful.
Right.
That I won't be anxious. That the intensity or the anxiety that you generally have with the pace of life in ministry, that won't be there if I don't have my responsibilities. That wasn't true. Wow. That was harder that's the part that was hard for me. I think because when I retreated and began to rest.
Yeah. What happened?
That I still felt the anxiety was still sitting there. It was like, it might have been worse.
Wow.
It might have been worse. So now what was true about that is there were moments in my insecurity that I wondered to myself, man, if the church is doing really well while I'm not there, will they want me back? Wow. So it wasn't as much, well, I've lost my identity in the sense of I can't, some of my insecurities came out. Like, I've been gone 3 months. Maybe when I go back, they'll be like, hey, we did good. We did fine without you.
Right,
we don't.
Right. So that's insecurity.
That came out a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But more the anxiety, I think. The insecurity, if I was going to rank them, the anxiety was 1. The insecurity, it wasn't even 2. I would say the second thing that happened, one was anxiety. 2 was, Lord, if you don't deal with this anxiety, I don't know if I want to continue.
Wow.
I don't know if I want to continue. I don't want to continue doing ministry the way I'm doing ministry if this anxiety isn't resolved.
Right.
These fears aren't resolved. This feeling of, so that then underneath that was probably some insecurity, but not as strong.
So talk about.
For me.
Right. Talk about the fears and the anxiety. What was the anxiety about?
Well, at first, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It was there, and I wasn't sure why it was there. I was confused. I have nothing to do. I have 0 responsibilities other than being with my wife and enjoying her, going to the beach, doing things that I enjoy, being with my kids. And it was there, and I did not understand why it was there.
So it was confusing for you.
That's why during sabbatical, you still need counseling. I still needed to be talking to a counselor. My goal was every 2 to 3 weeks to say and to ask him to bring orientation for me. This is what I'm experiencing right now.
Because you might be thinking, this isn't going well, I'm not doing it right.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay.
Actually, I was thinking, this isn't going well. I think it might be easier to go back, to stop, because this is painful. To have anxiety revealed like that, and I felt like I would feel healthier if I just went back and started to do the things I was doing, because in a way it could blanket that anxiety. So I needed counseling. I needed to connect with somebody through my sabbatical to say, this is what I'm going through right now. I don't understand it. I'm thinking about ending my sabbatical. You better help me. That kind of a thing.
So he could give you some guidance and normalize what you were experiencing.
Exactly.
And so the retreat moves into rest, and the rest moves into reveal. And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
That's fine.
One of the things that you're saying is the resting revealed anxiety.
Right.
What else happened with the rest piece?
Well, let me tell you what was helpful.
Yeah.
When I shared with the guy that was counseling me, I have this anxiety. He told me, because you've retreated and rested, it's now being revealed. So now this is the stuff. This is what God wants to begin to work on. So he normalized it for me. He put it in context, and it became the thing that I recognized. Man, the Lord wants to begin to change the octane of what's been driving me.
Right.
So when I rested, what I recognized was I've been driven by anxiety based on expectations. We can get into that. Based on expectations I felt I had of myself or people had of me. But when that was revealed, then I realized this is what the Spirit of God needs to recalibrate in my heart and change what's driving me so that I could have longevity in ministry.
And I think there's a great lesson here, not just for pastors on sabbatical, but for all of us. And that is when something gets revealed in our hearts that is painful, upsetting, and we're tempted to retreat, to go back. Say, this must not be right. I've got to go back this way.
Right. Go back into your old pattern because it'll just, I won't have to deal with it.
Right. But if you stay with it, and you stay with the pain, you stay with the anxiety, and allow God to start to work on it, that's the path to redemption.
That's right.
Not going back, but going forward.
That's right.
And often, so often, you know, when I work with pastors or people in counseling, sometimes I'll say, it's going to feel worse before it feels better.
Right.
But that's okay.
Yes.
And that's what you were experiencing.
That was. Now, here's what happened in my relationship with God in that.
Yeah.
I realized that so much of my relationship with the Lord was oriented around my ministry. So when that was removed, my prayer life, who I was praying for, how I was thinking, when that was removed, the only thing I had was the Lord, my relationship with Him. But because so much of the orientation, right, of my relationship with Him had to do with providence, it was like I needed to learn to reconnect with Him from a new place.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to pray about providence.
Right.
I wasn't going to envision about providence. I was not sitting before the Lord saying, help me with this sermon. It was just Him and I with not much to do, but be with my wife and kids, which was great. So our relationship, our relationship needed to grow in some certain ways when all that was removed out of my relationship with the Lord.
So ultimately what you were doing is you were reconnecting with Him.
Right.
Recalibrating that intimacy with Him.
Yes.
And experiencing Him for Him.
Right.
And not just because of the ministry activity.
Not because of the ministry activity.
Yeah.
And if you remove, I just give pastors this challenge. If you removed your ministry, life, and thinking and vision,
right,
and related with the Lord, what would you talk about? What would you have to talk about? Because it was hard. So to be still, my theme verse, Psalm 46:10. Be still and know I'm God. To be still and be contented and be with Him and relearn. Because I think John's challenge in Revelation to the church of Ephesus is return to your first love. Return to your first love.
Right.
I needed to return to something that I was losing. And so by being still and not having all the ministry stuff, it forced me to sit quietly, delighting and being with God with not a whole lot to say or a whole lot to do, and experience His grace doing nothing.
Wow.
That's a powerful thing, Dave. I mean, to me, that's where the recalibration, the renewing of grace, the renewing of intimacy, the renewing of Him, of just me and Jesus in intimacy. I'm getting passionate about it because that was recaptured. And again.
Those are the things that are what you wanted to go into ministry in the first place.
That's exactly right.
And that's the life out of which you lived in order to give.
Right.
And isn't it interesting how over a period of time, without paying attention to intentional, wise self-care, we lose that, and then the foundation we run on is fumes, right?
It's fumes.
It's fumes. It's depletion, energy, fumes.
Right.
And now you're finding, this is something new for me again. I need this. I want this.
Yes.